Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room that we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast.
Really? We escaped in so many ways from so many things.
We did so many escapes. Thank you, Matt, so much for running that room for us. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun this time too.
I had a great time with this. I mean, like, at the start of the previous episode, we said, hey, what's your recent escape room experience? And you mentioned just a few escape roomy video games, things like that. Funny that.
Yeah.
Because through this, it was definitely, obviously, based on video game stuff. But I really enjoy these sorts of video games that play with meta and twist what you can do and what... Just like things like, maybe messing with your settings will actually influence gameplay, things like that. I really enjoy those sorts of things. It's got, what sort of ones have that sort of feel? Like There Is No Game has that sort of feel. What other ones? I had another really prominent example in my head.
Metal Gear Solid 2. We have to unplug your controller or swap your controller to
Controller
Controller
Port 2 sort of thing
to beat
is
the boss.
wild. But yeah, I'm blanking. While we were in here, I was thinking, I am getting such... from this, and I am completely blanking now. But
Yeah, there's just a lot of great feeling like you're breaking the game, even though it's kind of the intended solution, sort of like when you escape the facility in Portal or...
Yeah. I remembered which one I was thinking of specifically, the DLC from Outer Wilds.
Yeah, oh yes, definitely. If people have played have you played through the DLC for Outer Wilds?
I have not.
If you ever do, you'll be like, oh wow, I can see the why it jumps into people's heads. There's definitely some to the point where there was some stuff where I was like, I'm not going to spoil this game by talking about it, but there was thematically reminded me of a few things, and it was very lovely. But it was really great. Did you have a specific inspiration to make this game?
Yeah, where did you start?
Yeah, so some of it was, as we kind of mentioned, the kind of aha moments of like feeling like you're doing something that you're not supposed to, even though that is what you're supposed to do. But also just for my day job, I'm a programmer. And so there's a lot of kind of overlap with the troubleshooting and, kind of programming things that then overlaps with video game puzzles and trying to kind of figure some of that out of how it either works or how to kind of solve a particular problem.
In which case, kudos for making it an accessible level in this.
Yeah, there was definitely some iteration there, and I appreciate the playtesters that I was able to work with, both technical and non-technical, to get the verbiage at an accessible level that... Some of the earlier iterations, particularly for that bug list, was a lot more obtuse. That was like, what is a crash error handler that gets enabled on a subsystem and things like that?
Yeah.
And
I think
it's
the level
okay.
the level that you ended up at is about the level that we could have dealt with, which is terrible because we're involved in some game design right now. And we should probably be better at error compiling, but usually that's the sort of stuff where when the errors hit, I just message one of the developers and go, "Hey, this is happening.
You probably know what this means, right?
You guys fix it." No, it was really fun as a setup, and one of the things I want to try and talk about before, just as a general feel, and I don't know why I want to start talking about this, and it's hard to explain, but what I really appreciated from this was this feeling of like, well, first of all, I love that we had to both mess with the game's setup to achieve victory, but also mess with the game to achieve like crashing. And I liked having to do both.
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't have been so satisfying if we didn't get to win as well as break. So that was really nicely put together. I really love that. But what I wanted to say was, when we got later in the game, we were like, okay, and I do this, and I do this, and I set up to get back to here, and I do all these things, and I get back to here. But what I really appreciated was that I knew exactly what that was, if you know what I mean. It's like the solutions for each of these things were so clear and so, like, defined, right? One of them was, I have red armor and negative attack, and I win. I have, things set to low except for voices, and I win. I can do... And because of that, because there were these really, like, clear, solvable solutions, it felt it kind of created senses of clarity where when we initially started, you're just like, there are aliens to shoot. I thought, how are we going to like tangibly
It felt like
do
it was
this?
going
Like,
to be more in the RPG
Yeah, a bit more
direction of here's a
improv-y.
problem, there might be a bunch of solutions.
exactly,
And
but
that can be
it
overwhelming.
ended up with these very, very clear, very immediately, once we've solved it, I can tell you what it is that I did. And I think this was a really
like
good
a cryptic crossword rather than a regular crossword.
Yeah, like I can definitively say this is what I did. But it means that when I'm trying to picture the room and picture our progress, I have a really clear mental image of what I've done and what I've achieved. And I can tell you immediately, like, this is how I solved this, this is how I solved this. And that's hard to find sometimes in escape rooms. It's hard to get right. And I don't even know if I have much to talk about.
You
I
just
wanted
have a
to
very
commend
clever
you
level of control.
on, I think it became really clear and understandable as a player in a way that was incredibly satisfying to play through.
Yeah, it was
You inspire a lot of
interesting.
GM trust.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting to run it for you guys as well as the playtest because, as you said, there is a perceived level of freedom that,
Mm.
well, what are the players going to do? And there is a lot of potential options despite there only being a few actual solutions. And so I actually have, in addition to some of my written notes, I coded up a couple uh, I coded up a page that I can kind of input and keep track of your different states. So then when you select the various options, it's like, okay, I see that you are currently selected on red armor and you have this volume. So then when I click on the level 2 button, it then prints out the appropriate response so that I don't get all of those wires crossed and give you the incorrect response.
Nice.
Makes sense.
I was just looking, actually. I've just noticed that our initial color of Space Marine was green. So presumably,
Yes.
had we gone in without changing our color, we would have taken damage but dealt no damage because they were green aliens.
Correct. You would have taken
Mm.
damage, and everything you shot at the aliens would have reflected back and not damaged them.
And that's then a way to learn, okay, same color reflects, let's be red. That way we can hurt them and they can't hurt us. And that's like the way you win. Getting to negative health was great.
That was very well spotted of you. That's
That level of,
absolute classic sort of game breaking. That felt like it fit
Yeah.
the theme so well as an idea to use. And as soon as you said it, I just felt shamed that I hadn't thought of it
But also
already.
the structure of that
Ugh.
cluing was so smooth.
Yeah.
Of saying of mixing the two things of like what are proper limits. Oh, going negative would not be a proper limit. So like this stuff is wrong. And then also the names of the crashes, which was great. I don't know if I would have necessarily noticed or like got it as quickly had we not already done one of the crashes. And because we rocket jumped, I could be like, rocket jumper, that's what we did. So home medic must be what we need to do. But that level of cluing of the names of the crashes mixed with these like, here are the bugs, I thought was really, really nicely put together. It was very smoothly done. Did that take much iterating, or was that like you had a vision for that and it just stuck the whole way through?
I'd say the bug list was definitely the thing that I iterated on the most to get the right wording, to have the right amount of clarity in the hints. And with that, yeah, as you kind of alluded to, it is interesting in that typically when you get that bug list, you have probably already solved one or two of the bugs on the list. And so that kind of clues you in that, hey, maybe some of these others I can exploit similarly.
That's nice because you're right. Like that's definitely how it played out for us. That we recognized some as well, and then it allowed us to know what the others were going to be.
What sort of order did people in playtests typically do things in? Did we match stuff or has everyone been different?
There's been a variety of orders that people have done things in. Some people were insistent to make sure that they win each level before going on to the next one. And technically speaking, you don't need the cluing for the bug list. You do need the clues of the developer profiles, but the actual bug list, you can just figure things out.
True.
It's certainly harder, but yeah,
I cannot
there was
believe
definitely
it
a
took
lot
us so
of
long to find
orders.
China pin meant China language.
Yeah,
Like,
we didn't,
God,
just
it's
didn't
like,
even really think
like
about
I just look literally. I've just got written down here, illegible in brackets Chinese, and 2 lines above that, all countries pin in China, and they're just like right next to each other. And I didn't until we looked back and was like, oh, of course, yeah, pin in China. What the hell are we doing?
it.
So yeah, that was probably solvable.
Did you find another one that seemed like it took a long time? Knowing that our trophies, one of them had a paper on it, one of them had a rock on it. We had those for a very long time, and
Didn't even think.
we weren't thinking about it. We got the third one. We hadn't even checked what its picture was.
No.
But somehow just having the third trophy existent made us go, wait a second.
Yeah, it's like, wait, I know what this is going to be. Oh, I'm a fool. That was very cool.
What peculiar brain linking that was.
Well, there's just so many things to keep track of. And because it's like, it's like in a real escape room, you see a thing out of the corner of your eye and you go, oh, that looks like this. We don't have that capacity as much, so we have to see our own notes out of the corner of our eye and be like, oh, I've written the word rock next to that one. That's a picture of, like, that's a rock. That's right. I remember now.
Oh, I didn't even have that. I've got a picture of a rock, but the others were not clear. But yeah, definitely things like that, like just going black and white things. I feel like the black and white stuff could be connected to some of the other black and white stuff.
That was a great catch. Black and white for chess. It made me go, wait a minute, 8x8 I've seen. Like, I remember the grid.
That was beautiful.
That was lovely. Actually, we talking about that chess puzzle. I remember I mentioned a little bit in episode. How hard is it to come up with a chess puzzle in which there are one-step like checkmates for both black and white? Is that easy or difficult? I don't know how common that is.
Yeah, I don't know how common it is either. What I ended up doing was looking up a just end board solution where, okay, this has one move away from a checkmate, and then I just started kind of manipulating the other pieces to say, like, okay, how could I move the pieces that are already in here to have a second checkmate?
Well, I mean, look, it worked out really well. Like, even though I initially saw the second solution, went, no, that's not right. Other than that, like, I think it worked out very smoothly. It was a very cool little puzzle. Is there luckily they were quite simple checkmates in the end. It was move one piece a little bit to find it. Was there, like, did you have to change that at all, or does everybody pretty much get it? Is it simple enough that you found most of your players found it straight, like, without too much trouble?
Probably most of the players found it. I informed a few players ahead of time that there was a chess puzzle in the room, just to kind of make them aware of that, since I wasn't sure whether they were adept at chess or not. And so when it came to that, there was maybe a couple people that weren't as good at chess, and so I kind of helped them along a little bit to say, hey, this maybe is something that you could move.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's a good level. Like, I haven't played a game of chess for like 20 years. So if I can find it, I think it's a good level of chess puzzle.
1-step ones are okay. Anything beyond that, like 2-step chess puzzles, I am horrendously bad at, and I'm not sure why.
If anybody watched our playthrough of Seventh Guest on Twitch a while back, which is on YouTube,
original Seventh Guest,
you can see how I react to chess puzzles. That has the classic place all the queens on the board, place 8 queens on a board without any of it. Oh my gosh, that's been a long time.
Just mad at that one.
That
said, that game had
that one really
a lot of chess puzzles. Like,
there are a lot of chess puzzles
adjacent puzzles.
So usually not so good, but that one was a very nice level, especially for an audio escape room. That there's a certain level of puzzle that you want. The puzzles in this across the board were a really nice level of not immediately obvious, but when you solved it, it was like, oh,
you're not fumbling
I've
too hard.
into it, right,
It's a lot that even in the puzzly puzzles, once you've got the solution, it feels like an aha puzzle.
Yes, very rarely. I think maybe only once did I ever put forward a solution thinking, I mean, I'll see if it works. I'll see. And it didn't, which was great. I can't remember what it was anymore. I know there was just one puzzle where I was like, I mean, if we try this, it doesn't work, right? You're like, no. It's like, yeah, cool. All right, fair enough. No, maybe that was hiding in a stalagmite. No, I think I liked hiding in a stalagmite.
Yeah.
There was something though.
It was interesting that you hid in that because actually I did do some iteration on the levels and I sort of streamlined them. The original version of level 3, rather than walking through the door to circumvent it, you did actually have to hide in the stalagmites to be able to be defended, and the boss was jumping around and he would always jump to on top of whatever stalagmite was nearest to you, and so you would be just the boss would be sitting directly above you, so it was a sitting duck that you could easily hit. So
good, I got an
yeah.
old solution. I'm the best.
Yeah.
But no, it was very cool. It was a very, very fun room.
I'm impressed with the picture of the headset motherboard, that because it's one of those images that it doesn't look innocuous, but it looks real enough that it is hard to spot just, oh, there's going to be puzzles in here. Like the screws, okay, we got that reasonably.
Yeah.
But the fact that that grid in the middle is something is remarkable.
Yes, yeah, because it could have just been, that's a grid, that's just part of what, because like the grid was something, but like the little white grids up and to the left of it
all the
weren't,
green
all the
bits
little,
of motherboard aren't anything.
But once we saw the chessboard and recognizing, oh my gosh,
that was
8x8,
a good pull.
I'm a fool. That was very cool.
Yeah, I used a little bit of some AI art generation plus Photoshop to merge the different elements together for that.
Yeah, nice. I was going to ask, do you have in this room, is there anything that was like your favorite puzzle? Like, do you have like for you a standout thing in this room that you like the most, having made it?
Good question. I think just some of the ways that you kind of exploit with like doing the negative attack as a heal factor is certainly nice. And yeah, just the different video game mechanics, having like that you mute the audio so that they can't hear you, which was actually inspired by, there's one of the Deponia games actually had that as one of its puzzles, where you had the character, he heard like some sort of clue, he had to then walk through this noisy crowd and then repeat the clue to someone else, and he keeps forgetting it in the noisy crowd, and you literally have to pause the game, mute the audio while you go through that crowd and unmute the audio.
That's fantastic.
For the solution.
That stuff is very cool. I really, it was a very nicely kind of thematically consistent escape room as well. Like all those puzzles did make, like in that form, like I could change the volume, I could change the settings, I could change this, that, like the using that and really keeping it feeling consistent the whole way through was done very well. Like it there was never a point where it was like, oh, suddenly we're doing a different type. And even the chess puzzle being introduced, like, was probably the closest it got to being like, here's something separate from what you're doing. But even then, like, we're playing games. It's the kind of game that appears in this situation. Like the idea of having a little chess version is, even then, like that's the closest we got to not feeling completely aligned, and it was still very aligned. So that makes the experience feel very smooth and very consistent, and there's no sort of like cognitive whiplash as we're playing,
which is very impressive considering just like how overwhelming having lots of menus and stats and things that you can shift can be.
I know you talked a bit about like paring down some of the language and change, like getting it not so technical. Is there anything that got sort of cut whole cloth from the game, from its original to its later thing?
There were a few things that also got simplified for the hardware debugger. In addition to the black and white cables, I also had a 4-pin cable, which was a 4-pin connector, and in addition to the chess puzzle, there was a Connect 4 puzzle. You had to figure out where the final one was, and so there was that. Also, in addition to the language and audio settings, I had a lamp that you could change between high and low graphics settings, and there were some puzzles that kind of depended on that. So for instance, in the maze of level 2, you had to actually change the graphic settings to low so that there would be no dynamic shadows so that you could go past all the spotlights that
my
were
God.
going
Yeah,
around.
okay, that's fun. But I can that is both very fun, and I can see why you cut it. I appreciate it, but also like, yeah, I can get for the streamlining. So, but that is cool. I do like that idea. Well, yeah, look, I had a lot of fun playing through, and it was a very enjoyable room.
I want to ask you a highlight. Like, what's your highlight? It's a little
Ooh.
bit challenging to.
I mean, honestly, I really like going to negative attack as well.
Honestly, that's where my
I
head
think
is
it's a
going.
really
I wish
fun
I'd
bit.
be the one to solve it, but
I did like
that's just
referencing
really
rocket
good.
jumps before I was then given the reference to rocket jumps, which was great fun.
Yeah, the negative damage was that was really impressive.
And I kind of also like from the beginning, like as soon as they got in and you started describing you're a Mars base, there's a little mirror next to you. I was like, oh yeah, this feels normal. This is a game menu in a VR game.
I
like
believed it.
I was
100%.
it was very immersive in the imagery from the beginning, which was lovely. And I'm really glad that we play enough VR games that I had that feeling of like, oh, I know what this mirror is. I'll set my avatar to be this, that, or the other, and it was very smooth. The Matrix twist at the end was a fun bit because it's always an interesting like, what do you do at the end of these scenarios? Like, because I wasn't sure where it was going to lead to,
And
that like that moment of the debug and then seeing and then taking it off, and I can still see the code and the person like that is a really nice sort of.
it was pretty messed up.
It was very fun. It was a very fun way to end the room and give this sort of like a meaning outside of the enjoyment of the puzzles and the structure. It started to pay off in the creepiness and then the twist. Like,
Yeah,
that nicely done.
was that always part of it? Was that element there from the beginning?
Yeah, was that your initial pitch to yourself?
It was there pretty early on. I think some of the earliest iterations had it that, yeah, you woke up and you just found yourself in a new world or something, and that was essentially it. And I added a little bit more of just some of those final interactions, not so much a full puzzle at the end, but just to have a little bit of agency so that you could be the hero of humanity or whatever the situation is.
Yeah, it was nice because it was the sort of thing that you could have put into an outro, just that, and then you do this and everybody, but like giving us that one last moment of, I put the chip in the chip hole. All right, nice, you did it. You know, like is a fun way to end a room. That sort of last action, even if it's not a last puzzle. I think it worked out very well. And of course, the real last action of grabbing everybody by the collar and shaking them because they don't to try and prove they exist. That's the real ending. But look, honestly, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing through the room. Thank you so much for coming on and bringing us another room. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun to run for you.
Lovely. So if people wanted to, is there anywhere you want people to check out? If there's anywhere you'd like people to go to see things that you do or make or anything like that?
Probably the best source would be my itch.io page, which is mattj375.itch.io. There you'll see the notes for this room, my previous room, Night at the Observatory, and a few other games that I've uploaded there.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Look, definitely go check it out. If you haven't listened to Night at the Observatory, maybe grab a copy yourself and play through it, and then listen to us try and do it ourselves. It's a really fun game, and this one was just as fun. They were two fantastic escape rooms. So, yeah, go check out Matt's itch page. There'll be a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to check it out. Danny, thank you so much for playing a room with me.
Thank you. You came across as very clever.
That's what I am. A clever boy. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this guest Game Mastered episode. If you want to help support the show, the best thing to do is just tell someone about it. Let's spread the word. Tell everybody. Jump on internet forums. Call up people and say, hey, you should listen to Escape This Podcast. Just type into your phone. Just be like 9999999, and then call them and say, listen to Escape This Podcast.
Like here.
And then 9999998, and then just go through every number in the phone booth. In the phone booth, yeah, every number in the phone booth. Call them up and tell them to listen to the show. You can also support us on Patreon if you would like to help donate to keep the show going. That's how we make all of the money that we make through the show. It's how we, buy food and pay rent and all that sort of stuff, and keep the show going. Anybody who signs up at any level can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms, not one of Matt's rooms. You have to pay Matt to appear in one of his rooms. But also for our $5 donors, there's bonus episodes. There's a new bonus audio episode pretty much every week of behind-the-scenes stuff, playing through playtests, doing weird little murder mysteries and things like that. There's video content for our $10 donors. There's trivia. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff. And it's really, more than anything, it's a way for you to help support the show and keep it going and to keep it free for everybody who wants to listen to it for free, because they should be able to. You should be able to listen to Escape This Podcast for free, and luckily everybody can. So thank you so much for supporting the show if you're one of our patrons. Thank you so much for listening if you're one of our listeners. And if you're not listening, I don't need to thank you because you're not listening. Bye, everybody. Goodbye.